On top of the town, it's all about you.
Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Town, the platform where we talk about what really matters in our community. Tonight's conversation is not an easy one, but it is a necessary one. We often think about child abuse, exploitation and human trafficking as problems that happen somewhere else, in other cities, other countries or on the news. But the reality is that these threats are present right here, even in communities like Centurion. And perhaps the most dangerous part of this issue is not only that it exists, but that many parents, caregivers and even schools struggle to acknowledge it, but talk about it or know how to respond when warning signs appear. Tonight, we are not here to accuse, panic or shame anyone. We are here to inform, educate and equip you so that if you ever become aware of a situation involving a child, you know what to do, when to do it and how to do it. We are joined by two people who work daily on the front lines of protecting children. Dani van Logrenberg from the National Centre of Child Protection. And we have Karen, the A-Team Gauteng leader, whose face we are not showing on the show tonight for protection purposes. A21 is an organisation internationally recognised for its work combating human trafficking. Thank you both for being here and for the work you do to protect the vulnerable among us. Dani, when people hear terms like child abuse, child exploitation or child trafficking, many still think that it is rare or exaggerated. From your experience, how real and how present is this problem in South Africa, and specifically in urban communities like Centurion?
Well, unfortunately, it's quite relevant. I would say that within any street in Centurion, from where there's not a lot and up to where we've got the richest of the rich in Centurion, the chances that there is some form of bullying, child abuse, child neglect going on is close to 100%. So unfortunately, we no longer have situations where we work with schools and in a classroom we've got 90% kids that have no issues, no abuse, no bullying, no neglect, no concerns at home, no divorced parents, nothing like that. We don't live with that anymore. We actually see the numbers going in the opposite direction, where more kids are being exploited, more kids are being bullied, abused, neglected and hurt. The problem is, however, where can we send them and where can they go to get the assistance that they need?
Karen, does this align with what A21 is seeing on the ground in Pretoria and surrounding areas?
Yes, definitely. We see a lot of trafficking, not necessarily like kidnapping, but online trafficking. And we see that mostly in your urban areas. Because children are on social media like the whole day. So it's a different kind, but neglect, for instance, also leads to children being on the phones, being vulnerable on social media, which is then a target for traffickers to exploit them online.
Many people imagine trafficking as children being kidnapped by strangers. Can you explain what child trafficking and exploitation actually means in real life and how subtle it can be?
Yeah, we do see kidnapping, but it's actually becoming less because it's so easy to traffic children online. So kidnapping happens, but what we see in a country like South Africa, there's a lot of family members and friends that actually sell the children, either into prostitution or forced labor or child labor. Sex slavery and so on. So the problem is mainly sexual exploitation, but also forced labor, child marriages, which we see in South Africa as well, and then a lot of online sexual exploitation, which is another form of human trafficking that is growing extremely out of proportion actually. So yeah, there's a lot of different types of trafficking in South Africa. Also organ harvesting, which we see under like different culture customs. So trafficking is growing and it's bigger than we actually perceive.
Dani, from your perspective, what are some of the most misunderstood aspects of child exploitation?
So I'm going to add on to what Karen said, and I 100% agree with her. Parents actually think if their kids have the best and the newest smartphone, they have made it. And kids actually get shy to be at school with not the newest iPhone or the newest Samsung or the newest whatever phone they can think of. That's a massive concern, because what social media does in general is creates this fake perception of who a person is. And kids are more vulnerable to that than adults. We are at a stage now, for example, where many years ago we'd be on Facebook for a lot of hours in a day, and you'd link up with people that you last saw at school, etc. We actually don't do that much anymore. The only people currently on Facebook are the people that want to complain about something. And sorry if it sounds nasty, but that's the way that I view Facebook at the moment. Our kids, however, saw that. They saw the way that we used it. And they saw the entire world of smile for the camera. Now it's your first day of school. Smile, you're at a rugby game. Smile, you netball, hockey, you name it. So the kids saw that. Now they're actually living it. But the difference is they've got more apps that they can live that on. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, which is terrible, Discord, and don't even want to complete the list of all the apps available. So what our kids are now doing is they literally, and I'm going to add on, selling themselves to the highest bidder. Because there's no ways that your child of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 knows 500, 600 people. And they're only doing things for the likes. But now you will see our teenagers actually do the following. Their Instagram profile, for example, is completely empty. No posts. But they do these reels or these shorts or whatever you want to call them. And that's the way that they get strangers, complete strangers, to communicate with them. We did a post on Facebook in the last week where we put a child walking past a car, and we said, you won't allow your child to get in the car with that stranger. But when that stranger has a phone in their hand, you'll allow your child to speak to them on Instagram, just because he created a profile with a pic that nobody knows who it is. And that's one of the concerns. So that's what we see. We see our kids are vulnerable. We did not grow up with cell phones, so we don't actually realize what it is. And the few parents that really try and monitor what their kids are doing are being told, that's my privacy, this is mine, you're not allowed to. And then our parents, because they now want to be friends with their kids, don't actually do anything, meaning that our kids are in conversations with grown-ups about things they should not be. Now, in Centurion, where we're sitting now, probably within a 5-kilometer radius, probably a little less, I've worked on at least 15 cases in the last 365 days, where children as young as 11 have been in conversations with men up to the age of 65, 70, sharing with them intimate photos and videos of themselves, because these men started out as youngsters and they enjoyed the conversation. And then with time, they realized, the more I show this person, the more they want to chat to me, the more they want to be my friend, the more they care about what I have to say, and so forth. So they start sharing intimate information with them. Grooming is actually the correct term, but for the people that don't understand the term grooming, so what they're doing is they're sharing everything with them. Now they get photos and videos of them, some of them very intimate. Now we sit with the next problem. That child is not going to go to mom and dad and say, Mom and Dad, I screwed up. We don't like doing that. I didn't like doing that as a child. Children today don't like doing that either. So now they show this person this video or photo. Now this person has control over them. You either send me another photo or a video, or I'm going to share this photo or video with everybody that knows you. How do they know? Because the kid's following their school, the kid's following their favorite teacher, the kids are following the principal, the kids are now on social media showing the world who they know and who they interact with. So there's this amazing video at the moment where this young girl, let's call her 8, 9 years old, walks in a shopping center with mom and dad. And then a complete stranger, I can't remember the name, let's call her Sarah just for this. Hi Sarah, how was your hockey game? Hi Sarah, how did maths go? I saw you wrote a test. And then these parents, these grown-up parents go, how do you know all these people? I don't know them. but they know you because you've been sharing all that information on social media. You've been telling the world, this is who I am, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. One of my favorite things to do at a school is to tell the kids, many years ago, the police came to our school and they said, don't take sweets from a stranger. And you had this picture of this guy standing at the school gate with sweets through the gate, trying to get your attention. They no longer have to do that. They already know your favorite color, your favorite sweet, your favorite sport, where you are, when you're there, when you're home alone, you like whatever restaurant better than other Spur or whatever. So you've already shared that information. So grooming has gotten so easy because I don't start with, hi, what is your name? I start with, I also have a puppy, guess what, with the same name as the puppy you got last week. So we already have that thing where we start our conversation 6, 7 steps in. And that's also what we see with our teenagers. They want to get married after 1 week's conversation because they get to chat on WhatsApp until 3, 4 in the morning. Because our parents don't want to parent anymore. They want to say, listen, you be my buddy. Do what you want without knowing the dangers that lurk in the dark.
Thank you, Donnie. This question I want to pose to both. Karen, will you please answer first? One of the realities we see is resistance from parents, schools, and even communities. To talk about these issues, why do you think there is such reluctance to acknowledge what these dangers exist close to home? Fear of reputational damage, fear of causing panic, fear of getting it wrong, what would you say?
What you said is very true, and I've really experienced a lot of resistance from schools, especially in your bigger Pretoria East specifically. I think that teachers and parents don't realize that their children are in danger. They think of human trafficking as children being kidnapped, like we've seen in the past, but parents don't know that if they give their child a device, a smartphone device, they're actually opening that child to the world and to potential trafficking. So I see that parents, it's like we say in Afrikaans, like to put your head in the ground and just pretend that it's not happening. So also in schools, I've realized that a lot of schools are extremely busy. They've got very busy schedules and they just don't have time for someone to come in and do the training. But I've actually received so many complaints or so many children that are already being trafficked online, already being sexually exploited online, that there's such a huge need for the teenagers in this area to know the truth, to know what to look out for. But I do feel like even churches sometimes feel, it's maybe not their task to educate people, and then also the schools. We do get a lot of opportunities outside of Pretoria area where schools are open for this kind of training. But unfortunately in this specific urban area, I'm really struggling to get into the schools.
So she's much nicer and kinder than I am. I'm not even going to deny that. So I think the schools are acting, and I'm going to say it as politely as I can, acting stupid on purpose. Because it's easier to do nothing than to do something and get involved. So I've had a lot of schools, specifically in Centurion, where a principal would say, we've got no concerns in our school. And I didn't contact the school because I was wondering whether they had concerns. We've already had the concerns. Remember, within our organization, we actually own all the child protection hotlines as well, including the Centurion Child Protection Hotline. So the kids have already spoken to us. They've already said, listen, I've got this problem. And instead of sitting and saying, how can we fix the problem? They deny the existence of a problem. We have a high school in Centurion where 2 kids were having sex on the stairs at school during school time. That was recorded, video was released, and then sent out on social media. Nothing was done about it. And that's illegal. That's supposed to be reported. There's no option around it. SORMA Act Section 54 is very clear on what should happen. Section 110 of the Children's Act is very clear on what should happen. So the fact that the schools don't want to get involved and they see trafficking, child protection, all of that as a no-no because somebody's going to get involved is very sad. They shouldn't see it. We should have open communication, open doors. And I'm not complaining. We speak at most schools in Centurion. But there must be more done. We cannot have churches, schools, etc., that have this policy of we care about kids, but we're not going to protect them. That makes absolutely zero sense. So I've had enough conversations with enough schools, and Pretoria East is actually probably even worse than what Centurion is, where they'd much rather have a child that's being bullied and being abused at school, because that's what bullying is, move schools than try and assist that child. Sometimes to protect the SGB members' kids that are bullies and so forth. So that's completely unacceptable. We need to take a tougher stance. I spoke to a school once where the girl was being rented out by her parents over weekends. So, and that happens a lot in Pretoria. Parents don't have money, they might have drug habits, etc. They rent out, in most instances, their daughters, but boys as well. They rent out their kids, and then that child needs to go to school on Monday. That child cannot just have a normal life on a Monday. But we need to also remember now that that child and the way that they now view the world and understand the world impacts her or his friendships and their relationships. So all of a sudden you're going to have an innocent boy, an innocent son of some parents sitting next to a girl that is not loose or anything. She has been exposed to certain things that makes her act in a different way. And that means your son is now in trouble. So without having these kind of conversations, we are even putting the innocent children at complete risk. And that cannot be accepted. And that I don't only say as somebody that works in child protection, and I've been in child protection for 16 years. I also say that as a dad with two amazing kids, that I'm always concerned I can teach them everything in the world, and they can be these amazing kids and these amazing teenagers. But by them allowing the wrong friends into their lives, the wrong people into their DMs on social media, I'm actually opening the world to them as well. We need, as parents, to be better. In Centurion, we currently see that more than 50%, so we used to be a Christian country, so we had more than 80-90% Christians. And we currently see that that number has actually dropped to just over 50%. Close to 50% of our children are either agnostic or atheist. And I'm not speaking, and obviously other religions as well, but that also now influences. That shows you how the church's influence has dropped. And that to me, as a Christian, is very sad. And I've tried with churches, I've spoken at many a church, and then afterwards the people would be, oh, can't believe this is happening. How? Don't you know? Don't you watch the news? Don't you read your newspapers? Or have you been guarded as such? And I mean, I don't want to now go between English and Afrikaans schools, but I mean, the Afrikaans schools definitely want to keep everything inside. Every bully instance, everything. With the problem is once we get those cases, they have gone so far that to assist is really, really difficult. I had a conversation with an aunt the other day. So when we got involved with the child, she was only 15 years old. Now she's 18, she's overseas, she started her life. But she was so abused and nobody assisted her. She was at the school, with the school counselor. She had all those conversations, but nobody wanted to step in and help. And I remember, I don't know how she got my number, and she made contact, and it was like a Friday afternoon, and she said, I even got your address. I'm outside the gate. So I went outside, and I had a chat, and I looked at this little girl, and I'm like, I can't believe nobody is helping. They're all saying the right thing. You know, they're all making the right noises, but nobody's helping. And we stepped in, we got her placed, removed from her parents, got her placed somewhere, and she's now booming. They told her in her first school that she won't make matric, she must probably redo a grade, etc. You know what? She didn't fail once. She jumped from a 40%er to a 65%er, which is absolutely amazing. And the only thing she needed was somebody to say, you know what? I'm going to help you. But she tried that. And we cannot allow kids that need assistance And I want to add to what Karen said as well, and she said it so well. When I was at school, they spoke about stranger danger. We're not that concerned about stranger danger. We are, because it's bad and social media brings strangers. But you know who the people are more than 85% of the time that hurt kids? People either in the household or close to the household. And I'm not talking about fake abuse because of divorced parents and one parent now all of a sudden saying this dad is doing this or this mom is doing this. I'm talking about real abuse, etc. 85% of the time, that little girl that's chatting to this stranger that we obviously at schools tell her might be from Russia, Nigeria, Ukraine, whatever, is sometimes her uncle. And that is very sad because he's got intimate info that he uses to break that poor child down, and then they hurt them. And then they sit at a school and a principal stands up proud. We don't have abuse here. We don't have bullying. So where's that child going to go for help? Mom? If mom's brother's the one that's raped her? No. We need to be able to get to these kids so we can assist them.
Thank you, Daniels. Thank you specifically also for that positive story in this very negative subject. Karen, schools often avoid these conversations because they worry parents might think something is already wrong at the school. From your experience, what is the cost of not having these conversations?
Well, just more and more children being exploited. And you can imagine a child or a young girl who now send naked pictures of herself to this random person on the other side of the world, and what most of the time happens, those pictures go onto your porn sites. So that child will always have that thing in her background, in her mind, that her pictures are on Pornhub, whether she knows it or not. And this is the big problem, because it will always catch up with them. Once they grow up and they start finding jobs and so on, those pictures can never be deleted from the dark web. And like I said, this will catch up with the children. So not talking to the children about this, not teaching them what to look out for, the danger signs, not teaching them the grooming signs, like you said earlier, will definitely have a huge impact, not only on children today, but in their futures as well.
Dani, how do you think schools can approach this topic responsibly without creating fear?
Well, just a conversation. So it's so simple. These kids live in homes. At their homes, they've got electric fence, they've got alarm systems. Why? For in case. So why would you be at a school that doesn't do exactly that? Let's put up an electric fence and let's put an alarm system in. That's all we want to do. Let's have those conversations. Let's not have kids. I mean, I read in court papers once where the girl only had a bikini on her Instagram, profile picture. And the mom said, it was so cute and innocent. Mom, you are doof. I can't say it to you in any other way. You are doof. Because kids in the past, we were concerned about kids taking naked photos and stuff, and they did. I mean, I remember speaking to a mom who was in complete denial. She walked in on her 11-year-old daughter using a flashlight to do things to her own body, because that's what the person on the other side of the line wanted, and she took a video of it. And that mom thought, my beautiful innocent girl, and then she walked in on it. And then she shocked, and then unfortunately broke the phone, so we kind of lost the evidence that we needed. But luckily for us then, in that instance, mom is now awake. Like, you allowed your 11-year-old free access to a cell phone at any time, day or night, with uncapped Wi-Fi. And you think you were mom of the year, you are not. I'm sorry. And I know, like I said, she's nice. I'm not that nice. And it's not because I don't want to be nice, but I think it's unacceptable, because that little 11-year-old is not going to be 11 forever. But her life has now changed. Now we need to keep in mind. So, and what we see in the industry is now they don't even ask you for a nude photo anymore. Just send me your smile. They can now, through AI, and we call it nudify apps, actually complete a picture of you without anything but your face. And that's enough, and they still use that. I remember one girl saying, and I'm going to say it in Afrikaans because that's the way she said it, she said, oom, ek het regtig nie daai foto gestuur nie. I believe you. I've got no doubts, because in the past, that was the thing, was a naked photo. They don't need naked photos now. I remember doing training at a school, and I put the principal, which was a male, in a pink bikini. And I remember teasing, I asked permission before, and I said to him, you're going to be shocked, but I want your staff to see it. And I remember when I put up the photo, I said to them, yeah, I was also shocked he doesn't have chest hair. And then they laughed, because it wasn't about the chest hair. It was this man in a pink bikini. If I can do that to a grown-up man, and I didn't use an inexpensive AI, it was only for that example, a cheap, freely available AI, quickly do this for me. Some of the AIs would say you can't do it and so forth, and most of them freely available will do it. So that is a massive concern. So we need to have that conversation around the table. You pay a security company to look after the grounds. You pay a security company to have immediate access to your school property once the alarm goes off. You do that to protect all the furniture, the computers, all of that. Why won't you do the same for your kids? And that's my simple question. I've never had a good reply to that. They actually don't like that question. But that's all I want to know. If you're going to spend that much money and by the flick of a button have all these vehicles pitch up at your school with people with guns, checking if there's somebody trying to steal a computer, why won't you do the same for the kids? And schools must stop thinking, when we want to have a conversation, that this conversation is showing that things happen in school, that things are already happening in the school. We need to now tell these kids, if this is happening, this is the way that we can help. Because if we don't, I want to go back to my earlier point, the innocent child is also now at risk. I'm going to use the following example. So I coach rugby as well, and my boys are, this year, I coach under 16s. So my boys are now teenagers. They went from innocent little boys, mommy, 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 where's my water, to, speaking about stuff that I don't think is healthy. If one of those innocent boys sits next to a girl in a classroom, and that girl has been selling photos on OnlyFans, etc., and she's been hurt and so forth, if she touches that boy's leg, you think he's really going to go, Mom, Dad, girl touched my leg? No, he's going to fist bump his buddies. Hey, she's touching my leg. He's then going to create this picture in his mind that is what love and intimacy looks like. And she, unfortunately, because of what's happened to her, she's going to give me something, I give you something. And that is not a healthy place. And I don't want that for my son, obviously also not for my daughter. So if we don't have these conversations, our kids are trying to navigate that world on their own. It's not new for teenagers not to speak to their parents. The difference, however, is today our teenagers are not only skipping their parents, they're actually becoming more entitled because AI is telling them whatever they want to hear. And now even asking a girl for a naked photo is no longer wrong because I can convince AI that it was a good thing. And that's a concern. So we need to have these conversations and also explain the consequences. Because the problem is, once a child has been trafficked, it's great if we can assist them in the end and we make contact with amazing organizations like the A21 and so forth. But once that girl is back, she's never the same again. That's impacted her, not because nothing is being done. She will either never trust again, or the other side of the coin, she would feel that's the only way that she gets attention and she's loved. And that is not healthy. We need to make better choices and decisions for our children, and we can only do that together.
Let's get practical. What are some warning signs that parents, teachers, coaches, or even neighbors should be alert to when it comes to possible abuse or exploitation?
So the most important sign, or the first sign, would normally be a change in behavior. So I get a lot of parents that say to me, but I didn't know. And then with conversation, they say, I noticed the following. Yes, because your child would act differently. They'll be on their phone more. They won't allow their phone to be on its own. So even if they just have to quickly go to the toilet, the phone needs to be in the hand. They quickly go to the kitchen to get water or cool drink. Phone is in the hand. So the phone never leaves their side. That means there's something on the phone they don't want people to see. Now, most kids have passwords or blockers on, so you won't be able to access it in any case. But because they're kids, they don't think about that. So they show you certain signs. They withdraw, so they're in their room all the time. They don't speak to anyone. They change in the way that they communicate, so they shorten their answers, shorten their communication with you. So those are some of the signs that we see and that parents can be on the lookout for. Also, listen to the words that they use, listen to the names that they use. So your child will all of a sudden speak about a child, a person, a someone, but you kind of know it's not within their friendship group. That means that person is probably speaking to them online. So they also say things about this person that doesn't make a lot of sense because this person is either too perfect to something. So those, again, are signs and things you need to listen to and adhere to. But at the same time, you must also remember, because our kids are on social media, they also Google stuff and they search for stuff and they ask AI stuff. So they might show you a different picture to what you are experiencing. But again, because they're kids, they don't always know how to regulate that. Especially in divorce setups or post-divorce setups, we'll have people saying, but the child has trauma, or the child has anxiety, or the child has that. And then they'll show you clear-cut Google symptoms. That means somebody is influencing this child. We speak about a complete brainwash of the child, and that's what grooming is as well. It's a complete brainwash. One of the things that parents will also tell you afterwards is, my child started getting rebellious. Of course, because this other person is now telling them stuff like, but your parents are too strict. Your parents don't care. Your parents control you. Your parents are manipulating you. Because that is normally what most groomers and brainwashers do. They tell you what they want to do and they just put it in other people's mouths. And then you become their hero. So they now confide in you and you get to control the narrative.
Thank you. Karen, what are specific behavioral or lifestyle changes that could indicate grooming, online exploitation, or trafficking risks?
Well, my colleague here said a lot, which is everything is true. He spoke about the isolation, children that wants to be alone more often, children that are secretive on what's happening on their phones, children that, like you said, become rebellious. They will start fighting, start arguing, start saying things like, but you don't support me. The main thing that traffickers do is to isolate their victim and also to break any close relationships. So he is going to, I say he, but the person, the trafficker, is going to encourage a child to break relationships, to not trust anymore, to don't share information with parents or even close friends or teachers, because that then gives them a better kind of gap to target or to exploit the child. We also see that the children might want some more money. They might push the parents for money because a lot of these traffickers will tell the children and threaten them, if you don't give me this amount of money, I'm going to post this on your social media platform or post it on Pornhub, for instance. So the children will then feel trapped, threatened, and they will start finding ways, selling things or stealing money. So that's also a sign that you can look out for. The grooming process, like Dani said, is that firstly isolation, behavior changes, the way they think about things, and then lastly to be exploited. And by that stage, the children will not be free or will not feel free to go and tell an adult about it. We have to remember that children's frontal lobe are only developed by 25. So this doesn't help because the traffickers use this, and children don't know or can't think of the consequences. Like they don't realize, but I can just block this person and go and tell my parents and then it's over, block or report this person. But they feel so threatened, they can't think logically about consequence and cause and so forth. So that is what the traffickers exploit. That innocence, like you said as well, the vulnerability that children have.
This question I'm going to ask both of you. How early do these warning signs typically appear? How often are they missed or explained away as normal teenage behavior or a phase?
So that'll depend, but in most instances, quickly. It happens very quickly, because what will happen is this person will love bomb them or gaslight them, whichever term you're comfortable with. And then your child will go and search for that attention. And then this person knows they've taken the bait. And then they will speak to them non-stop for the first day, day and a half. By that time, your child kind of feels they know this person. So one thing I want all parents to go and Google after this conversation is Stockholm Syndrome and then trauma bonds. So they then actually fight for this person to be in their life. That's one of the things we look for when we read court papers is, who's this person fighting for? Are they fighting for a certain person to be involved? Is this parent fighting for a certain psychologist specifically, or social worker, or whatever? Because that shows you that they know what they're going to get. Kids, and she explained it very nicely, up to 25 don't understand consequences. So much easier. So you see the signs quite early. Your child will go from one day and there's a difference the next day. They're not going back. You need to stop that and end that. Be a parent, put on your big pants and stop it. It's okay to tell a child no. Boundaries are important. I've got a lot of parents that knock on our door that says, but I don't believe in that kind of parenting. I like to have an open conversation. I'm growing up mini adults. No, they're kids. They're not going to be kids for long. Don't let them be adults now, because adults get to make decisions. And if you're their friend, they don't come to you for advice. They come to you for silly stuff and stupid stuff. And that's when we've got dads and moms that tell me, yeah, but they only drink a little when they're with me. No, what you're teaching your child is that they can drink alcohol. So what do you think happens at a party? Don't worry, guys, I've got this. Boys, I can do this. Okay, and now he's gone too far. And what happens then? Then we find him in a ditch next to the road after an accident. So no, you see it. You'll see it immediately. You'll see the changes. You'll hear the changes. And I'm not talking about they had a bad day at school and they just short and nasty, and tomorrow morning they forgot what they did yesterday. You'll see the way that they speak. And like I said, that phone in the hand. The word isolation that Karen uses is so important. That's what you'll see. They'll isolate themselves. They no longer want to do anything. They don't want to speak at all. That is your warning sign, because you know your child. Don't stand there thinking, is this them? You should know your child well enough. There's a change. Why is that change? Is it because they're getting older? Because yes, and you said it, parents. But if they're now teenagers, they're different. No. My parents didn't allow me to be a different teenager. They had a way to keep me in the straight and narrow. You want to be their friend, and you're allowing certain things. Because if your child speaks that way to a teacher, they're in trouble. Why do you allow them to speak that way to you? So you'll see the change. You know what's the child that you grew up. If you gave your child too much freedom, they're going to act like a spoiled brat. That's your fault. Don't complain about that. But if you've grown them up in a certain way, and there's a change, and there's a way that they speak, and they're now looking at their phone, smiling at their phone, somebody is busy exploiting them, busy gaslighting them. It's so important that parents also understand your 13, 14, 15-year-old, specifically girls, should not be dating 21-year-olds. Don't allow them to go on dates with the matrics and stuff. They don't need that nonsense. You're going to put them in difficult positions and situations. You're now empowering them, because now you're telling them they're grown up. They're not grown up yet. They're still kids. I am, however, less concerned about the boys these days when it gets to that, because of everything that happens around GBV. And I mean, GBV in the last year or two has now changed to women and child abuse. Our boys don't feel part of that. So our boys are actually stepping back from the girls, which is making our girls also look outside of school for boyfriends and conversation. We have to always remember, the one thing happens, it has an effect and a knock-on effect on everything else. So the chances, if you've got a high school daughter, that she's dating a high school boy are actually quite slim. That might just be for you and for the people around her to look at, but she's having a conversation with someone else, because the boys are telling us, we get too close, we're too friendly, they tell us we want something, or we're only interested in one thing, we don't have time for that nonsense. So our boys became more immature, more childish. They hate it when I tell them that, but that's the truth. Most boys, I would say, max at 12, and then they don't grow further. And that includes most of us older men as well, probably. But we're seeing that with the boys. I've done, in this year alone, I've probably been to about 6 or 7 high schools, and all the high school boys tell me exactly the same thing. They did it last year, they're doing it this year. So because of the fact that you tell a girl she's got a nice smile, then she goes on Instagram and says, the boy is harassing me, we kind of not interested. So we kind of push them away, not all of them, but we kind of leave them there, and now we see we kicking ball and whatever's happening, we being boys again, which is great. But the negative of that and the impact of that is that our girls are now having conversations with people that they don't know. And I always tell the girls as well, Chameleon 101 is not a person you want to know. That photo is fake. And it's probably with me somewhere. And then another thing I want to say to the girls before I pass on to Karen, crop tops. The only people that look at girls in crop tops are men in their 50s. Yeah. Mommy, you buying crop tops? Please stop. You are literally putting your daughter on the market. And in every shopping mall she's walking around in her crop top, there's a camera. And somebody operates that camera, meaning that video and photo of her is available.
Another important thing that we can add is that parents are so busy nowadays, so they don't know their children. Like parents working long hours, leaving early, coming back late in the afternoon or evening actually, and then they don't see those behavior changes. They don't see that children are not okay, that they are not coping, that they are isolating themselves, that they are not interested in activities anymore. So that's very unfortunate. And then the schools and the teachers, the ones that spend a lot of time with the children, also don't pick these things up. Or if they do, they don't know what to do about it, or how to help the child. So that's another thing, people being too busy to actually invest in their children, get to know them, build relationships so that they can pick up those changes.
Thank you, Karen. Dani, this is the part many people fear the most. If someone suspects something is wrong, but isn't 100% sure, what should they do and what should they not do?
Let's go back to what the law says. The law says if there's a suspicion of abuse, neglect, then there's certain people, according to Section 110 of the Children's Act, that must report it irrelevant of anything, meaning there's a suspicion. So if there's a suspicion, teachers is one, legal representatives, medical doctors, and the list is quite long, it's available, you can just Google that. When it comes to something sexual, we look at SORMA Act, Section 54. So SORMA Act is sexual, what's the O? I can't remember the O, but sexual something, and then related matters acts. And offences, yeah, it could be. Sexual Offences and Related Matters Act. So Section 54, again, if there's a suspicion, then it becomes mandatory to report it for every single person. So let's look at a shopping center, that's a car guard, that's the teller behind the till, that's everybody. When we get to sexual related matters, now we can only report it to the police. There's no other options. You report that to the police. That's going to be difficult on its own. It shouldn't be, but unfortunately is sometimes. But we'll get to that, and we'll share our numbers at the end for assistance. When it gets to abuse and neglect, you can report it to one of three. There's three options available. The police being one, DSD being another one, and then a child protection organization. So that's an organization like Child Welfare, Rata, Tutela, etc. So you can then report to them. That's your option. So what normally then happens, you complete a Form 22. That Form 22 literally breaks all the stories down to what you would say. It's still just an allegation, but the allegation is there is sexual abuse and this, or there's emotional abuse, or there's physical abuse, and it has little blocks. So you don't have to write too much, you just tick the blocks, and then in the end it will ask you for your information. It will also allow you to add the information of the biological parents and then the alleged perpetrator. Remember, every suspicion does not mean something is happening. Sometimes people create a false narrative so that they can exploit it going forward in divorce or whatever the case might be. So when you suspect, you need to act. That does not mean because you suspect something, everybody's going to tell them that you suspected that. And that's important because sometimes we see something, we think there's something wrong, but please, teachers, all of you, don't go and now try and play detective and go and ask questions and so forth. Because sometimes kids enjoy the attention and then they create something that never was so that they can continue to receive the attention. But yeah, once it gets to that, I know it's not fun. We have that conversation often because we've got a lot of counselors within our organizations and social workers and so forth. Something gets reported to them or told to them, and then they become what we call the first responder. Then they must now go and report, and they don't want to because they don't want to get that involved. Many years ago, there was this advertisement, and the people were partying, and the people will phone the police and the Metro Police, and they'll say, they are making noise, and then the police come and they quiet them down. Then the next evening, there's domestic violence. And it's in that instance was a dad shouting at the mom. And then they said, no, we don't get involved. Same noise, but now we don't get involved. And that's how we've become, which is terrible, which means we're teaching kids it's okay to be abused. And what does our country have? A massive GBV issue. Why? Because if you speak, you might be in trouble. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to say, this is right, this is wrong. If wrong is happening, please report it, because if you don't, firstly, you can get into real trouble. I mean, there's certain fines and imprisonment, etc., that can happen if you don't report. But that's not what I want the focus to be on. I want the focus to be on you suspect something, and there must be real suspicion in good faith. Also, don't. We get a lot, the aunt says, the aunt says, my sister says, the child says, the dad's doing this. Please don't do that. That's weird. And in the end, you're going to be seen as the aunt. If it's real, have the child speak to someone and get assistance. But that process does include the other person having an opportunity to also say what is and what is not and give their part. Please don't do a one-sided thing because you're going to empower a child, or you're going to believe you empower a child, and you're actually going to damage a relationship in doing that. But if there's suspicion and it's in good faith, there's nothing that can happen to you that reports.
Thank you, Dani. I just quickly want to mention GBV that Dani mentioned is gender-based violence, to those that do not know what it is. Karen, if a child discloses something, even partially, how should an adult respond in that moment to avoid causing further harm?
I'm sure Dani can also elaborate on this, but the most important thing is to tell the child that you believe them, that they know that you want to do something about it, that you love them, that you care for them, and that as far as possible let them know that you believe what they say is true. We should also encourage a child, if it's in a setting, teacher, a child setting, and the child says, but don't tell anyone about it. We have to let the child know that if it's a legal issue, he has to or she has to report it, like Donna just said. There are fines if the teacher do not report that case. So then to let the child know, but it's okay, we are not going to tell the whole school or everyone about it. I'm just going to report it for your own safety and your own protection. It's not to make this big story about it, but my role as a teacher or a child worker is to report it and protect you at the end.
This question is also for both of you. When is it time to escalate a concern, and who should you contact? Can you outline clear, practical steps from first suspicion to reporting?
Okay, so I'm going to share our organization's number. So if people ever wonder, make contact and we can assist you through the steps. So our contact number is 076 900 7151. So that's our national number. We've got a different number for Centurion, but they come to the same call center. So please maybe use the national one because sometimes people get so finicky about jurisdiction that they kind of go tense up. That's not needed. So steps are the following. child comes to you and says to you whatever they say, is to write down as many notes as you can. And if you don't have a pen and paper, to make notes on yourself. And what I always say to a child, especially when you're at a school, I don't have pen and paper with me, and then the child would share something, I quickly dot down notes. And those notes become your first reaction notes. Because remember, the more a child tells people about what might have happened to them, the more they change their wording to the grown-ups understanding, because grown-ups now do things like, and I don't want to use weird words on your program, but they'll say that private part, you know, as a small child, they'll call it little flower or my vermpie or something. Let them stick to that. Please don't go and put words in their mouth. Your job is not to interrogate. Your job is to listen. So, okay, and what happened then? Okay, and so forth. Then also, like Karen said, I think that's so important, be honest with them. It's not about getting them in trouble for reporting, but there's certain things you can't by law keep to yourself. And you can't also not just help them. Not everybody is a police officer or a social worker with DSD, which is the Department of Social Development, or so forth. So not everybody has those powers and that knowledge. Sometimes people really just don't know. We work at enough schools to say most teachers don't know. That's nothing wrong. They probably didn't do the training on that. It's not something, I think, when you go into teaching that you think, what happens in child protection cases? Because I can show you teachers that have gone 10 years without a single case just because they do the classes that they give, there's not that open communication. They don't have a registered class, so they don't see that first in the morning immediate change or personality that comes to the school. They already see the child only an hour or two in, so the child is no longer coming from abuse. They're actually now at school and it's a safe space, so they act differently. So step number one, make contact with an organization like ours. Share the details. We'll tell you if you can't report to us. So, for example, you are in Centurion. In Centurion, you fall under Verda Park. And Verda Park, they fall under this organization. So there's the contact details. This is what they're going to need. This is what you need to share with them. If they don't have certain information or they wonder, we will share with them what the next steps would be and get them to put something black on white as soon as possible so that the original wording sticks. Because it's normal for a young child to change stories with time as well. I remember many years ago, we spoke to a child and something of that story just made me think, I've heard this story before. And I got home and I spoke to my own kids and they were like, Dad, that's from Henry Danger, which was a story that was quite popular. Well, it's probably still popular, but my kids are now grown up. Not grown up, they're teenagers, but it was a Henry Danger episode. So this child was getting, and there's no proper English word for deurmekaar, between real life and the story that they're watching. And that's okay. It's okay, they're kids. So listen, take down the notes. You as a grown-up, you don't have to do anything with the notes. Your only job from there is to report it to the relevant authority. So if it's sexual, to the police. If it's not, to whatever welfare organization that has jurisdiction. And you don't have to worry about that. You can make contact with us. And you don't have to phone us. You can even send us a WhatsApp and we can communicate from there.
I would just like to explain something quickly. Donnie is speaking a lot about gender-based violence, which is also includes domestic violence and so on. Human trafficking, because of the exploitation part, is a little bit different than the gender-based violence. When a child or a person has been sold into prostitution, for instance, like you said earlier, the father or the parents sold this little girl, that is the exploitation. And when you look at the Human Trafficking Act, the authorities or the law will then see if there is this element of exploitation, of being used. So either forcing the child to beg on the street, that is a type of exploitation, because they gain something from it. Also, I've heard recently of children being forced to go and do shoplifting actually, and that's also a type of exploitation. So where there's abuse, but not necessarily the exploitation for their own gain, like selling a child, that will fall under gender-based violence and abuse, But once it is like selling a child for money, like we've heard with the Jocelyn case, the mother received money, and that made it a human trafficking case, because there was a compensation in some form or another. So A21 has a hotline. We vet anything. If you want more information on how to handle the case, they will guide you. They will actually tell you whether this case is a type of human trafficking if you are unsure about it. And they will then send out the DSD, Department of Social Development. They also work together with the Hawks and the police and go and investigate the case that you report, and then keep that on file and then follow up with you and the case and so forth. So our hotline number is 0800 222 777. It's 24/7 available. If you can't speak English, then you can speak in your normal home language. They do have translation services. And yeah, it's a very effective way of reporting any case. So if you suspect it, report it.
Thank you, Karen. It's something that you've also mentioned to before. If there's an interview that you need to go to and you're not 100% sure about the situation, is it a safe place to go to? You can also vet that with A21.
Yes, because the big recruitment method for traffickers is false job opportunities. So that's another way that you can phone them and they will say, yes, it's legit or not.
Prevention is just as important as intervention. What conversation should parents be having with their children, and at what ages, to reduce vulnerability?
So prevention is very, very important. A21 focuses a lot on awareness and prevention training, where we teach children from preschool age up to high school level, students, professional workers like your nurses and so forth, on how to identify the dangers of human trafficking. So firstly, we will teach children like what is the grooming process, what makes you more vulnerable. If you use social media, using a profile picture, for instance, like you said, Donnie, in your bikini, that makes children more vulnerable. Posting things like, my parents are getting a divorce, makes traffickers actually aware that, oh, there's emotional scars. So then they will also start grooming the child. So I would say start as early as possible without instilling fear. So it's important to tell your 3-4-year-old child to always stick with you as a parent, not walk around in the mall or go and look at something else, but to stay close. Like I said, not instilling fear, not saying, oh, but someone is going to steal you and you're never going to see me again, and you have to be careful, because we don't want our children to grow up scared. So another thing online, start as early as possible. Tell the child that, remember, what we see online is not necessarily always the truth, and they should also know that whatever we put online is maybe something that's going to catch up with you later on, like I said earlier. Let children know, watch YouTube with them, and if something inappropriate comes up, tell them, remember, we don't look at these things, it's not good for our brain, it's not good for our development, so we stay away from this. So sit with your children, spend time with them, specifically on social media. Let them know there are dangerous things out there. There are dangerous people out there. Let them know that if someone invites you, it might not be that 16-year-old boy or 25-year-old young man that is inviting you, but that things like AI exist. Be open. We always say, if you have an open relationship with your child, then your child will most probably come to you when there's an issue. So be open, have the conversations. Tell them, if someone sends you a naked picture or they ask you for a naked picture, you know this is not right. You know that this person is just trying to get something from you or manipulate or threaten you, so that they don't shy away from those things. Be open, let them know the dangers, let them know that there are people out there that are out to exploit them.
I just quickly want to mention, when my sister was little, she didn't want to hold my mom's hand because she said it was sweaty. So So if you have something like that, figure out another way to do it that is still safe for the child, still able to keep the child around you so that they don't wander off. Dani, what role can communities play, neighbours, churches, sports clubs, schools, in creating environments where children are safer and predators find it harder to operate?
So the Springboks has given South Africa the Stronger Together hashtag. And that's reality. We are stronger together. So if we can all have these open conversations, and I'm going to go back to the alarm system and the electric fence. Churches have them, schools have them, homes have them. We all have them. So let's bring that closer and let's have these conversations so that the same conversation takes place at a church, at a school, at home, at their sports clubs. Because see, if we have these conversations, we're not going to have sport coaches that only coach to be close to kids. They're going to be passionate about the sport and they want to teach the kids the sport. They're not going to be passionate about kids and then just do the sport because nobody's going to vet them or check them out. Vet the people. So the Department of Education is very hard these days on vetting everybody that wants to work with kids. All the other departments are doing the same. Sports clubs, I coach here at Centurion Rugby Club, so we get vetted every single year. We have to go through the processes, police clearance, you name it. So be strict on that. Don't bypass that. The one unfortunate thing is that very few pedophiles ever rehabilitate. So let's not do that. Let's not appoint pedophiles to work in the gardens and the stuff where kids are. Let's not be silly. Let's have open conversations. Let's make this such a normal conversation that a child knocking on a door, whether it's with a dominee or the school principal or the teacher or a sports club or even, with We Are Centurion, somebody knocks on the door and says, listen, this has happened, that we can help them. It needs to be a normal conversation. It's not taboo. It's not illegal. It's a normal conversation where once we get to child protections, unfortunately, sometimes it's a step too late. Let's safeguard these kids before we have to get there. Warn them. It shouldn't be normal for a child that's loved to want attention on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok. So let's make them feel loved. Let's have those conversations. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but let's at least be stronger together. We all say the same thing, and we then, as a town, like Centurion, say, you know what, zero tolerance towards bullies, zero tolerance. So whether that is reported to you or Arnold or anybody else, or me or Karen, shouldn't matter, it's a no. And once we do that, we're going to be okay. But as long as we've got everybody pulling in their own direction, and some people saying, but this doesn't happen, or a church saying, no, it's not that bad, we all should be loved, and we should love everybody. No, I don't want a 2-year-old that's been raped by somebody to love her rapist. Don't get me wrong, I get the entire, we love everybody, but that's a nonsense theory. Let's not go there and say weird stuff like that. Let's be open to the fact that our kids are in danger, just like we were in danger, just like the Gert van Rooyens existed many years ago. The difference now is they still exist. Jocelyn, like she mentioned, it was easy. We had in Kempton Park the other day where a mom and a dad was walking down the street and they literally stopped at every single person they could, and they said, 300 Rand, here's a baby, we need our fix for the day. So, and luckily for us, the person they tried to sell to had our number and they made contact with us. And we could make sure that because that's trafficking, that's selling a child. So we shouldn't be doing that. So let's have conversations, open, honest, frank conversations. If somebody's shy, just call it what it is, phone me, I'm not shy. And then once we've done that, let's all stand together. And it's not about saying, Mom, Dad, julle maak droog, you're in trouble because you gave your child the newest iPhone and they're doing this. No, it's sometimes just a little thing called education. Listen, when you give your child a phone, but you also allow that child to have the phone in their bedroom, and then they don't go to bed and they awake until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Listen, most of us do stupid stuff on our phones at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. The child's no different. So let's not create opportunities to put our kids in danger. open conversation, everybody at the same table, and let's make sure that when a child is there, that child has maximum opportunity to be safe. Is it foolproof? No. There's still going to be kids that take chances, kids that jump off roofs after they've drank alcohol, kids that go to school with vapes. We're not going to have it perfect. But let's at least get it there, that when the child's in trouble and they knock on the door, whether it's your door, my door, shouldn't matter. Let's follow the process.
Is there one message you want parents, educators and community leaders in Centurion to walk away with tonight? What would it be?
Be better. That's it. Be better. It's not about you. It's about the kids. So stop making it about you and your school's reputation or your church reputation. That's not about you. Your kids are in danger, and it's not your fault they're in danger. It is, unfortunately, mostly the parents' fault. So how do we get to we educate them. And I read something this morning, and it said, if you allow your child to speak to you in a certain way, you allow your child to speak to a teacher in a certain way. Teachers spend a lot of time with these kids. They can see the good homes from the bad homes, but they can also see the influence of the kids that have too much freedom versus the kids that have less. And they can see how that influence, because they also see that change. So Karen said it earlier, a lot of parents are too busy. If you are currently working to pay for the mansion for your kids to live in, but your kids don't know you love them, I've got bad news for you. You're probably on the wrong path. But you'll be better. Be better. And like she said, if you see it, report it. If you suspect it, report it.
Thank you, Donnie. Karen?
Thank you. Yeah, I would add to that is just be informed. Know about the dangers of social media and human trafficking. I always say if your child has the app or the game, you should also have it. Make sure you know the privacy settings. Make sure you know how it works. So be informed. Do some research on the game your child is playing. Even if it's just TikTok or just Facebook or Instagram, know what they're on. Know their friends. Make sure that you know the people they hang out with. And then also be involved. Be involved with your child. Make sure that the child can trust you. Also be aware of the pictures that you post of your children. I know you are proud of your grandchildren or your child for becoming a leader, but don't post those pictures. Many times we ask the parents, but are you willing to put this picture of your child on the billboard on the N1, that huge billboard? If you are willing to put that picture on the billboard for everyone to see, your child in their school clothes or whatever, sport clothes, then yes, go ahead, post it online. But if not, then why do you want to share it with the world? Because that's exactly what's happening on internet and social media. So be informed, know the dangers, and know the games that your children are playing.
Tonight's conversation may have been uncomfortable, but silence is far more dangerous. Child abuse, exploitation, and trafficking thrive in environments where people assume, deny, or look away. What we have learned tonight is that awareness saves lives, conversations protect children, and knowing what to do, when to do it, and how to do it empowers ordinary people to make an extraordinary difference. To parents, educators, and caregivers watching, asking questions does not mean you have failed, it means you care. We encourage you to engage with the work of the National Centre of Child Protection and A21 to share this episode with others who need this information. On behalf of We Are Centurion, thank you to our guests and thank you to every viewer who chooses to be part of the community that protects our children. Good night, and let's keep this conversation going.